She never liked to be told what to do. Not by directors, not by designers, and certainly not by the rules of Hollywood femininity. When Lauren Bacall stepped onto the screen for the first time in To Have and Have Not, 1944, she wasn't just playing a role. She was rewriting the blueprint for what a leading lady could be. She didn't flutter her eyelashes or giggle in submission. She leaned against the doorframe, chin slightly lowered, eyes lifted just enough to catch Humphrey Bogart in her gaze, and said in that impossibly low voice, "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve?" With that single line, she became immortal. But Bacall's story didn't start in Hollywood, and it certainly didn't start with glamour. Born Betty Joan Perske in 1924 to Jewish immigrant parents in the Bronx, she grew up in a world far removed from the silver screen. Her mother, Natalie, was a secretary who worked tirelessly to support her daughter after Bacall's father abandoned them when she was just 5. From an early age, Bacall learned independence, a quality that would define her both as an actress and as a fashion icon. She spent her childhood idolizing Davis and other Hollywood stars, collecting movie magazines, and dreaming of a world far beyond the streets of New York. Her path to stardom began not in an audition room, but on the pages of Harper's Bazaar. While studying acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, she worked as an usher in Broadway theaters and took on modeling jobs to make ends meet. In 1943, fashion editor Diana Vreeland spotted a photograph of Bacall in a green suit on the cover of Harper's Bazaar and saw something different, an edge, a modernity, a confidence rare for a young woman in her late teens. That cover led to a screen test with director Howard Hawks, who saw in Bacall a unique mix of vulnerability and steel. When Hawks took her under his wing, he not only cast her into Have and Have Not, but also helped shape her image. He encouraged her to lower her voice, already deep for a woman, to make it even huskier. To control her nerves on set, she developed her famous mannerism of tilting her chin down while looking up, an accident that would become her signature. But while Hawks might have guided her, Bacall ultimately shaped her own persona. She wasn't just different because of her voice or her acting style. Bacall dressed differently from other Hollywood actresses, both on and off the screen. She rejected the ultra-feminine gowns and elaborate hairstyles of her contemporaries, favoring a wardrobe of sharply tailored suits, high-waisted trousers, and structured jackets. At a time when women in Hollywood were expected to be overtly glamorous, she leaned into something more effortless, more European, more androgynous. Her fashion sense wasn't about seeking attention, it was about exuding quiet confidence. Her on-screen wardrobe in To Have and Have Not was a revelation. Designed by Milo Anderson, her looks were a departure from the hyper-feminine styles of the era. She wore impeccably cut suits, crisp blouses with strong shoulders, and sleek pencil skirts. Her character, Slim, wasn't a damsel in distress. She was in control, just as much as Bogart's character was. It was a style that women wanted to emulate, powerful, sensual, but never excessive. Off-screen, Bacall's style was just as deliberate. She favored clean lines, well-tailored coats, and simple yet elegant accessories. Unlike many Hollywood stars who were draped in diamonds and elaborate gowns, Bacall made a statement with minimalism. She often wore men's-style trousers and button-down shirts, a look that was both rebellious and effortlessly chic. She had an innate understanding of how clothes could shape perception. She didn't need layers of ruffles or dramatic silhouettes to be noticed. She let her presence do the work. Of course, there was one person who noticed her more than anyone else: Humphrey Bogart. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, but it was their off-screen romance that would define Bacall's personal and professional life for years to come. At 44, Bogart was more than twice her age, but their connection was immediate. Bacall later described falling for him as the most natural thing in the world. Their relationship was a stark contrast to Hollywood's usual staged romances. It was real, intense, and unwavering. They married in 1945, and Bacall adapted effortlessly to life as Mrs. Bogart. She accompanied him on set, learned to love his hobbies, and even picked up his penchant for casual yet elegant dressing. Their home life was filled with dinner parties attended by the likes of Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, and Frank Sinatra. But even as she settled into married life, she never lost her sense of self. She continued to define her own style, opting for classic silhouettes rather than trends. Bacall's film career flourished throughout the 1940s and 1950s, with roles in The Big Sleep, 1946, Key Largo, 1948, and How to Marry a Millionaire, 1953. In each film, her wardrobe reinforced her image. In The Big Sleep, she wore sharply tailored suits with padded shoulders, making her appear just as strong and self-assured as Bogart. In How to Marry a Millionaire, she held her own against Marilyn Monroe and Betty Grable, proving that sophistication could be just as alluring as bombshell glamour. Tragedy struck in 1957 when Bogart died of esophageal cancer. Bacall was devastated. For years, she struggled to find her place in Hollywood without him. She had brief relationships, most notably an engagement to Frank Sinatra, but nothing compared to her time with Bogart. Despite her grief, she reinvented herself once again, moving to New York and returning to her theater roots. In the 1970s, she won 2 Tony Awards for her roles in Applause and Woman of the Year, proving that she was more than just a film star. She was a performer, a presence, a force. Her style evolved with age, but she never lost her signature elegance. Even in the 1960s and 70s, when fashion became increasingly experimental, Bacall remained true to her aesthetic. She wore sophisticated black evening gowns, impeccably tailored blazers, and chic, oversized sunglasses. In her later years, she became a symbol of timeless style, gracing the covers of magazines well into her 70s and 80s. Bacall's influence on fashion can still be seen today. Designers like Ralph Lauren, Tom Ford, and Phoebe Philo have drawn inspiration from her effortless cool. The structured coats, masculine-inspired tailoring, and minimalistic glamour she championed remain staples of modern fashion. She paved the way for women to embrace power dressing long before it became a trend. But perhaps her greatest legacy isn't just in fashion or film. It's in the way she carried herself. She never chased trends, never sought approval, and never played by Hollywood's rules. Lauren Bacall wasn't just stylish. She was a woman who knew exactly who she was. And that is the very definition of timeless elegance.